So, thruples, don't worry, I got you. Happy Valentine's Day. Welcome and welcome back, everybody. Tabletop Toki here. Happy Valentine's Day. Being that it is the season of romantic love, I wanted to share with you my top 10 underrated games for 2 players. There are a wide variety of games that play well at 2, but I really tried to be specific and focused on the games that are just masterpieces that are really designed specifically for 2 players. And of course, with underrated games, I wanted to share games with you that I think are just fantastic designs that deserve more love. So make me a pinky promise right now. If there's at least one game on this list that you have not heard of before, you need to go down into the description, click the like button, and subscribe to the channel. It's free. It's the least you can do. You're welcome. Or else. Really though, it does help out the channel by promoting this video and getting it out to a wider audience so more people can hear about these amazing games that deserve more love. Without further ado, let's get started. Game number 10 on this list is a gorgeously presented game with a multitude of different mechanics that really come together, and that is Haven from Red Raven Games. In Haven, you're going to be vying for control of shrines and havens throughout the forest by collecting lore. One player will play as the forest, while the other plays as the machines. You'll be drawing and playing a combination of different types of cards, such as warriors, which have combat and lore values, offerings played to certain elementals, which will trigger resolution of lore and shrine tokens, and lore cards, which are unique abilities provided to each different faction. Not only is Haven a gorgeous game with art from Lion Locket, but Alf Siegert's design brings together elements of push your luck with playing warriors out straight from your deck, bluffing when you play warriors face down from your hand, area control with trying to get different shrines and havens, as well as card management with trying to get to certain lore values. It's a very tense back and forth tug of war act with each resolution, and when they trigger, one of the things that I love is the fact that playing an offering to a particular elemental doesn't necessarily trigger resolution until your opponent's turn for the most part. So you really have to think ahead and prepare and try to anticipate what your opponent is doing as well. All these mechanics work so well together. The game depth and length feels very appropriate. If any of those elements sound interesting to you, be sure to check out Haven from Red Raven Games. Next up, we have another game that seamlessly blends together many different unique elements in terms of mechanics, and that is Caro from Hurricane Games. In Caro, you are going to be playing as rival factions, driving throughout the desert, trying to collect resources and claim different territories before your opponent. One of the most unique aspects of this game is a timed dice rolling phase. Each player will have this sand timer truck, which will represent the amount of gas that you have while traveling around trying to gather different resources. You can re-roll your dice as many times as you want, provided that you have enough gas, but the longer you go, the less gas you have for future rounds. These symbols will allow you to do a multitude of things, such as purchase cards to build your engine and collect points for set collection, put out different clan members to gain majorities over certain locations for some area control, and resource management with toric and gas tokens. There are a lot of little things in this game that provide you some interesting opportunities. I think the fast and loose style of this game not only evens out with the number of rounds that are provided, but also really fits the theme. Overall, Prospero Hall did an amazing job of, again, integrating a lot of unique elements and putting them together in a way that makes sense with the actual theme of the game, but also mechanically each part leads from one to the next and connects very well. So whether any one of those elements is for you or not, if you're looking for a game that is super well designed, very true to the theme, and certainly leaves an impression, be sure to check out Caro. And now we have our first pocket-sized game on the list. Game number 8 is a miniature version of a relatively well-known series in the board game community, and that is Mr. Jack Pocket. In this game, one person will be playing as the detectives, while the other will be playing as Mr. Jack. Players will flip tokens showing prescribed actions in order to manipulate tiles and movement of characters in order to gain or obscure line of sight. Mr. Jack is a certain character that will be trying to hide from the detective's sight or blend in with the crowd, while the detectives are trying to narrow down the amount of suspects they see in order to pinpoint who is Mr. Jack. This is one of the most brilliantly designed hidden movement games that I have personally seen. A lot of them are on a larger scale, and I really love this condensed down version because it distills it down to its purest elements. Because of that, with the action tokens as well, once you flip your initial 4, for the next round, they're going to flip to their exact opposite side. So you can really plan ahead for up to 8 actions in trying to deduce what your opponent could do on their turn. And this makes for some very tense, puzzly goodness. The game is extremely engaging. It requires all of your focus once you're in because no one action is particularly game breaking. You really have to account for even just one point of movement or one tile's rotation because those things could drastically change the outcome of the round. So if you were looking for a pocket-sized deduction hidden movement game, look no further than Mr. Jack Pocket. Game number 7 also has a fairly condensed down package, but this time with a Western theme. That is Longhorn from designer Bruno Cathala. In Longhorn, you're going to be playing as some outlaws wrangling up cattle. To do so, you're going to employ a Mancala style aspect where you take all the cows of one color off of a tile, which will not only dictate scoring for the end of the game, but also show you how many spaces you can move the outlaw tile and set up where your opponent will start their turn. While it seems like it may be a mad dash to just collect as many cows as you can, the great thing about Longhorn is how the scoring resolves, because the value of each different type of cattle will be dictated by the amount of remaining cattle of that color on the board. So for example, there are 9 orange cows. If you have 8 of them in your supply and only 1 on the board, they're only worth 1 each. However, if you only have 2 with 7 on the board, they're worth 700 each. There's a lot of manipulation in terms of the supply and demand of various cattle. With Longhorn, all the information is out on the board from the start of the game. There's no random chance, no die rolls, no card flips. You have literally everything at your disposal. So that can make for some really satisfying, interesting combinations of planning ahead and trying to anticipate what your opponent will do on their turn. Anytime I see a copy of this game, I pick it up because it makes a great gift game. It is one of my personal go-tos if I want a quick 2-player game that's extremely engaging with gorgeous presentation, and that is Longhorn from Bruno Cathala. The next game on our list, admittedly, is not the most attractive game in terms of its visuals and presentation, but its depth of strategy and tight tactical combative nature just really gets my heart pumping, and that is Tashkalar Arena of Legends. In Tashkalar, you'll be playing as rival factions who are placing units out on the board in certain patterns in order to try to summon heroes and even legendary units. These units will have different strength values which can interact with your opponent's units on the board in various different ways and have unique abilities based on their specific card text. Ultimately, these units will be used to fulfill different tasks ranging from certain patterns on the board, area control, combat, and summoning goals. Although I'm not very good at this game, I absolutely love it. It has an abstract kind of feel to it, but it is super crunchy. I also love the variability of each faction. The base game comes with 4 factions, blue and red, which are identical. Great for starting out because you can see and anticipate what your opponent might have. And the green and brown factions, which are each unique with their own cards. There are also several expansions, including an expansion that allows you to travel through time with cards that you've previously played, influencing future cards and vice versa. Games like Nurshima Hex, Summoner Wars, Monolith Arena, those tactical tiling games feel very similar to Tashkalar, but what I love about Tashkalar is that not only do you have unique units, but the way that they're represented with the patterns on the board, and the juxtaposition of trying to secure particular spots for summoning versus for completing tasks really makes Tashklar an overall engaging experience. Vlaada Chvátil is known for designing a wide range of games of very high caliber, and Tashklar is absolutely no exception to that. So if you like the idea of a very tactical, somewhat abstract pattern and area control game, be sure to check out Tashklar. Game number 5 is one that I was very skeptical about when it first came out, but after purchasing and playing it, you can say it really grew on me, and that is Botanic from Space Cowboys. In Botanic, you are drafting tiles in order to create the best irrigation system for your plants and vegetables. Each turn, you'll take a tile and either place it on your side by matching it to either the color or shape of the tile in the center column, or placing a tile freely on any center column space in order to release tiles on yours and your opponent's side once they no longer have any matching characteristics. These tiles will then be added to your tableau, which will score you points at the end of the game based on the adjacency of different colored pipes as well as the flowers indicated on various tiles. Botanic has that amazing drafting mechanic that I hold so near and dear to my heart, which is that delayed gratification of taking a tile and not getting to place it directly in front of you, but having to piece together how you can go out a couple steps ahead, placing it somewhere in a public space and having to commandeer, then getting it back onto your actual tableau on a later turn. This type of mechanic just adds so much depth of strategy, incentivizes players to think ahead, and provides a lot of interesting choices with drafting, because now you're not only thinking about what you need and what your opponent needs, but also how you can puzzle together, making sure that that works out with the correct timing in a future turn. I think the tiling in this one is also very interesting with how the different colors and flowers score. It's very succinct and straightforward to the point, but again, with a lot of decisions and planning ahead. So if you're looking for a great 2-player tiling game, I would definitely suggest checking out Botanic. And here we have our first purely abstract game on this list. It comes from a very popular series of abstract games. However, it is not usually the highest rated of the series, but my personal favorite game from the Gift series is Yinch. In Yinch, you are going to be placing rings and tokens out onto the board. Each turn, you'll place a token inside one of your rings and then use that ring to jump across a straight line on the board, flipping different tokens as it passes over them. If you're the first to get 3 lines of 5 tokens of your color in a row, you will have won the game. Yinch is one of the purest abstracts with a lot of room for the manipulation of pieces on the board. It has virtually almost no setup other than laying out the board and gathering your rings. Rules are very simple. The barrier of entry here on all fronts is just super low. It's extremely streamlined, very satisfying in terms of the components, in terms of the mechanics, how you can manipulate different tiles by jumping over them, block out certain pathways for you and against your opponent. I know that abstract games aren't for everyone, but Yinch is a game that even when I've shown people who typically prefer a lot of theme, has been a fast favorite. So if you're looking for an abstract game to add to your collection and you haven't checked out Yinch yet, you absolutely need to. Getting down to our top 3 here, we have a wonderfully packaged game from Thundergriff Games with a theme that is near and dear to my heart, and that is Hats from designer Gabriele Bobola. Hats is a game about collecting hats of various different colors representing certain fairy tales. In order to do so, you are going to be playing cards from your hand to a central board that are matching in color or of a higher value. The card that you replace will then go in front of you for endgame scoring. So you can already see one of my favorite mechanics, not being able to play directly from your hand or directly cards that you draft. But not only that, this also has that variable scoring that we talked about with Longhorn, where the cards that end up on the public board at the end of the game will dictate how many points the cards in front of you are worth. Each of those slots 1 through 5 will show you the value of the cards in front of you. So blues could be worth 5 points if there's a blue card in the 5 slot, or if there's not one represented on the board anywhere, they're worth 0. This makes for some very tactical decisions where it could be anyone's game up until the last moment. Not only that, there's bonus scoring for your favorite hat, which is the card you have left over, scoring the sum of cards in front of you of that color minus the one in your hand, and scoring for variety of hats, so whoever has the most hats will get the cookie, which is worth 5 points. There are a lot of card games that deal with set collection, but I am personally hard-pressed to think of one that is as streamlined, satisfying, and simply gorgeous as hats. This technically plays 2 to 3 players in this style, and there is a 4-player variant for teams of 2, but I think it was really designed for a 2-player or 3-player audience, so thruples, don't worry, I got you. Happy Valentine's Day. If you haven't already, be sure to check out hats. And our number 2 slot is a game that is one of my most nostalgic. It's been with me since the beginning days of my collection, and it was my original litmus test for getting friends or people that I met into the hobby. Fallen is a 2-player asymmetrical choose-your-own-adventure style game where one person plays as the dungeon lord, setting up various challenges and using creatures in order to stop the hero, who is progressing through gaining XP, leveling up their skill tree, and finding different items to try to make it to the final battle and defeat the dungeon lord. The dice in this game, the spells, creatures, items, the unique powers for every single one of the characters really makes for an immersive experience that truly feels different on every playthrough. Not only that, but you use 3 random story cards out of a deck of a multitude. I think the base game comes with 30, and then with expansions, it's so many more. Fallen really gives an in-depth experience unlike any other game I've played. You can really dive into the roleplay aspect of it, the storytelling and choose-your-own-adventure nature of each of the story cards is really interesting, and it's got a great dungeon crawl type of aspect to it. The way that combat resolves with the dungeon lord and hero do feel very different because the dungeon lord has to set a threshold of swords that the hero has to achieve on their turn. So not only do you have unique decks and unique types of cards that work in different ways, but the objective each round and how you strategize around that feels very different depending on which of the 2 sides you're playing. This game came out a while ago. It's mainly out of print, so it may be a little hard to get hold of, but if you ever happen across a copy or have the chance to play it, you absolutely need to check out Fallen. The number 1 game on this list is one that, in my mind, I feel everybody should know about. Yet more often than not, when I bring it up to someone, I am shocked that they have never even heard of it. This is one of my all-time favorite 2-player games. Not only that, it is one of my favorite board games in general, and that is Hanamakoji. This is a very tight, I-cut-you-choose 2-player game where you are going to be drafting cards to win the favor of certain geisha. Each card will have a color and number, which represents the geisha it belongs to, as well as how many of that card are in the deck. The 4 actions that you have on your turn are going to allow you to save cards, discard them, or create groups of items that your opponent will then choose from and you will get the remainder of. This game is beautiful. It is concise. It is tight. It's a game where the entire time you feel like every decision is leading you down a bad path, but you're in luck because both players will likely feel that way throughout. And that's one of the great things about I Cut You Choose, because you have to make those tough decisions of which cards can I offer my opponent? Can I give them a good enough deal that they'll give me what I need? So although the mechanics and goals are very clear and streamlined, the actual decisions of what you do on your turn are so excruciatingly yummy. And each of those 4 actions that was mentioned, you can only use once per round. So you really have to plan ahead and hedge your bets on which cards you think will come up, what your opponent is doing, and what they may have in store. Overall, I feel that Hanamakoji is a must-have for any collection. It is my number 1 go-to game to show to people if they haven't seen it. This is the top priority. And like I said, it's very concise. It plays to a maximum of 3 rounds and is very easy to learn but difficult to master. So if you haven't already, you absolutely need to check out Hanamikoji. So there you have it. Those are my top 10 underrated 2-player games. As promised, if there was a game on here that you haven't seen before, go ahead and click the like button and subscribe. It's okay, I'll wait. But really, while you're down there, let me know in the comments down below what some of your favorite 2-player games are. If there are any hidden gems that you think myself or others who are browsing down in the comments would enjoy, please leave those as well. Thanks so much for joining me as always. Happy Valentine's Day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.